All right, so some big news out of Wisconsin. The gold standard of polling in Wisconsin, Marquette University Law School's poll has just dropped, and it shows that Kamala Harris is winning the state by 5%. That is outside the margin of error. So this is a really, really good poll for Kamala Harris. We are going to delve into the crosstabs today, look and see if this poll looks on the up and up, see if it looks good. But overall, just a quick glimpse that I had before, this looks fine. This is really good news for Kamala Harris. Now, if you're wondering how good this poll is number 3 when it comes on the list of 538's poll ratings or whatever. Number 3, and its transparency score is 10. You can't get any higher than 10. So it's extremely transparent and it's extremely accurate according to 538. Now, I know a lot of people out there will say, well, Dave, what about 2016? Because they said that Donald Trump was going to lose Wisconsin. He ended up winning. Remember, 2016 wasn't a polling problem. It was a turnout problem. And these polls don't mean anything unless you turn out to vote. Now, a lot of people have been putting comments in my videos, and actually, thank you very much for putting these comments into videos, that these polling numbers mean nothing unless you register and you vote. So make sure you register, and if you like what you see in this poll, make sure you go and vote. Make sure you vote in person, early voting, vote by mail, whatever. Make sure you vote. But let's go ahead and delve into the Marquette University poll and see what the crosstabs have to say. Now, one thing I just want to mention before we go, and this is the methodology page. I said that she's winning by 5. Just wanted to show you that the margin of error with likely voters, which is what we're going to be looking at, is 4.7%. So this win, this is outside the margin of error. Now, Marquette University does say that they round it up. So it could possibly not be, but based on what we have right here, we're going to go with that it is within the margin of error. So let's go ahead and go to the crosstabs. Okay, so because they don't have the top lines in the crosstabs, I have to go back and forth between web pages, between the top lines and the crosstabs. So this is our top line of Kamala Harris against Donald Trump. You see Kamala Harris up by 5%. 6% have not decided. But this is a 5-point lead and outside the margin of error. So let's go ahead and look at the crosstabs here. If we see men, we see that Kamala Harris is down by 10. People might think that 52 number is a little bit low. It's not. As I've mentioned in other videos about Wisconsin, male voters tend to be a little bit closer than in other states. So this seems about spot on. 56% women to 38% of women. That seems spot on. The distribution of gender seems exactly where it should be. Now let's go ahead and go down to age. And again, this age distribution looks good. So we have a decent margin for Kamala Harris, and she's doing quite well with the 30 to 44-year-olds, which is in line with what we've seen in other polls. And then we see 45 to 59 being a little bit closer maybe than we should expect, but it still has Donald Trump in the lead. And 60 and older, I don't know why they didn't go with 65, but 60 and older, 50 to 45. I assume if they go up to 65, that number might get a little bit closer, but or maybe not, because as I've mentioned, and I'm going to mention this right now, I said there's 3 voters that Kamala Harris needs to focus on. I'm adding a 4th now. I said young voters, moderate voters, Hispanic voters, which aren't really going to play a role in the Wisconsin poll, but 65 and older voters, okay? That's going to be one to watch. All right, so if we go ahead and look at party identification, we can see that with the Democrats, they're almost, those who identify as Democrats are almost solidly behind Kamala Harris. Now, this is one thing that that is a big change from what we saw with Biden. We saw a lot of people with Biden just like, I don't know if I'm going to vote, right? Now we're seeing Kamala Harris really solidify the Democratic votes. I mean, the Republican vote is still pretty high, but a lot more are looking like they could stay home in Wisconsin. And of independent voters, we see a pretty big shift when it comes to Kamala Harris. However, remember, that's not going to necessarily be as big of a number as the partisan voters in Wisconsin. So these numbers so far seem spot on. If we look at ethnicity, we see Kamala Harris with a 2-point lead. again, as I mentioned with the male voters, in Wisconsin, white voters are going to be much more liberal. So that number is going to be much closer. And in many polls that we have seen in Wisconsin, we've seen Kamala Harris win the white vote, okay? So as you can see, that is substantial. The black vote is 95-4. And then the Hispanic vote here, she is losing it to Donald Trump 55-43. But as I mentioned, these two demographics aren't going to play as much. The black vote here, maybe a little bit in Milwaukee and stuff, but the overall scheme of things within the state, not really. Now, if we look at the way people identify as far as ideology, this is one of the groups I said that Kamala Harris needs to target. As you can see, the largest number are moderate voters at 247 of the sample. Those are breaking 59-28. This, I think, is going to, at the end of the day, this is going to be the key. What Kamala Harris has done, and she has done masterfully, extremely masterfully, and Barack Obama did it back in 2008, is to have a message that appeals to the left and the center. So it's like, it's not even like center left, it's left and center, and she's doing a really good job, and I think this is going to be the death knell for the Republicans because they're not going to be able to penetrate that center. 28% of moderates going for Donald Trump, with 59% going for Kamala Harris. That is huge, and that's not a trend. After seeing the debate, that is not a trend that surprises me whatsoever. All right, so now let's go ahead and look at the regions in Wisconsin. We can see in Milwaukee City and County, Kamala Harris up 66-29. The rest of Milwaukee's media market, and this gets out into the suburbs, you do see Donald Trump doing quite well. This is going to be one of his better regions outside of that. Obviously, Madison, Wisconsin, and that media market, very, very liberal, 66%-27% for Kamala Harris. That's no surprise. Green Bay media market is probably the most conservative market of them all, which has 57-36. And then this is the one that's kind of interesting. The rest of the north and west of the states. Now, there are small little liberal pockets, especially in the west, but this number is only 1 point for Donald Trump. And this makes me wonder about the Tim Walz effect. Does Tim Walz, being from a neighboring state, help him in those counties? It helped Barack Obama win Iowa in 2008. Those counties that bordered Illinois tend to do a lot better for Barack Obama. So a lot of people talk about Josh Shapiro and how he would help, which, by the way, most people don't know when Josh Shapiro ran in 2020, the same year Biden ran, he ran for Attorney General. Joe Biden actually outperformed Josh Shapiro in his home county of Montgomery County, Josh Shapiro's home county. So there's really no credence into, or no evidence even, into this whole idea that Josh Shapiro would have helped. But we do see with Barack Obama that him being from a neighboring state helps, and I think that's going to help here with Tim Walz in Wisconsin. Now, as far as the top line vote as well, I just want to show that Tammy Baldwin in the Senate seat is also winning. She's been ahead pretty much in most of the polls, if not all the polls have been out. So one of the worries I think that Democrats have had is that there has been this big discrepancy between what the Senate polls show and then what the presidential polls. You'll see people like Gallego and Tammy Baldwin and Casey running a little bit ahead of the presidential candidate. Now you're starting to see those solidify, which means what? Which means we're getting a lot of people starting to be straight ticketers. If Democrats can get straight ticketers out to vote, game, set, match, Democrats have a wall, just go right through this. Now, there are some top lines that I do want to talk about because they have been mentioned a lot, and I saw this one video from that depressed ginger guy that makes no sense whatsoever, talking about how he's looking at the issues. Now, I'm going to tell you one thing. If you go to a political science conference, either Midwest Political Science Conference in Chicago or the APSA one, which just happened or is happening right now, I think in Philadelphia, and I wanted to go, but decided to come to Paris instead. One of the biggest jokes is that issues matter in an election. And I'm sorry, it's true. This is the reason why I just don't look at issues. Most behaviorists, when it comes to political science, really don't look at the issues at all because they're not important. It's more about ideology, connection to the political party, the voters' connection to the candidate, and so on. Now, the reason I mention this is because as we see Kamala Harris is outside the margin of error and winning the state of Wisconsin. Now, as you can see, most voters in the state think Donald Trump would be better when it came to the economy. Most people think Donald Trump would be better when it comes to immigration. Now, healthcare, most people obviously pick Kamala Harris. Foreign relations, more people slightly pick Donald Trump. Abortion policy, this one's probably going to be lopsided. Yeah, Kamala Harris. Medicare, probably Kamala Harris as well. War in Gaza, Trump here. Election integrity, definitely Kamala Harris, and so on. So I just wanted to show you that a lot of these issues, people think that Donald Trump will be better for them. But there's another crosstab in here that is way more important than any of these issues. Let's go ahead and go to that crosstab. So let's look at this one. Shares my values. This is the one that really matters the most. 51% of people in Wisconsin say that Kamala Harris either shares their values very well or somewhat well, with 32% saying very well. This is important. Now, if we look at corrupt as well, we see only 38% of people in Wisconsin think that Kamala Harris is corrupt. Now, let's go ahead and look at the Donald Trump numbers on this. As we can see with shares values, Donald Trump is only at 45%. So we see that the number that he has in the polls, he's not even getting those 100% of those who identify as Donald Trump sharing their values. So he's down, he's down 2% compared to what this number is. And that number is huge. Now, if we look at corrupt, do you think that Donald Trump is corrupt? 62% of people in Wisconsin say, yes, this statement is true. This really does describe, with 47% saying this describes Donald Trump very well. This is what the issue is. This is what the election is about. Everybody is focusing on, oh, well, what about the economy and this and Donald Trump? Integrity, values, whether you're corrupt or not. These are the things that matter. If you sell yourself like this, and I know a lot of Republicans are like, well, you know, Kamala Harris, she hasn't been talking about the issues and all. She don't need to talk about the issues because voters don't talk about, voters don't vote on the issues. I'm sorry. That's just like a fact. Go back to Campbell, Converse, Miller, and Stokes, the American voter, back in the 1950s and 60s. Look at their research, and all the research that's gone after that, people look at if somebody maybe does an overall good job, usually with the economy, maybe does a reward and punishment type of system with retrospective voting. Maybe they, in this case, are doing prospective voting as far as what they see Kamala Harris as doing in this election. But overall, you need to trust a person. You need to feel that they share your values and everything. People consider, and if it's at 62% saying that Donald Trump is corrupt, that means a lot of his people are like, yeah, I'm voting for him, but I know he's corrupt. Okay, which is a sad state for democracy in this country. But overall, this poll looks really, really good. The crosstabs are where they need to be. The crosstabs are saying exactly what we expect. And when we delve into these numbers about if they share your values, if they're corrupt or whatever, we see that Kamala Harris looks a lot stronger. People want to vote for a candidate that they like, that they trust, that they feel is honest with them, that's going to say it like it is. That's what elections are. And for years, and it really took until 2008 and then rehashed it again in 2024. For years, Democrats were in this wonky issue-based campaign. Ask John Kerry and other people how that worked. It doesn't, and ask Hillary Clinton. You need to have, it's a popularity contest at the end of the day. It's a popularity contest. As much as people don't want to hear that, it is a popularity contest. And if you want Kamala Harris to win, you got to make sure that you are registered to vote, that you do go out there and vote. Please, people in the comments who have been making those comments, please go ahead and continue that. And if you like what you saw in the video today, please subscribe to the channel. Making videos every day. But I wanted to go over this Marquette poll, the gold standard of Wisconsin polls, because we're getting to the point, and this is pre-debate. Okay, this ended on the 5th of September. This is pre-debate. So it'll be interesting to see what the post-debate polls show. And if they're, I mean, we've come to the point now that if Donald Trump is really thinking about where he needs to spend his money, the question is Wisconsin the place for him to stay? If you all of a sudden take Wisconsin off the map, you're almost there. All right, well, thank you all very much. I'll see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day wherever it is you are, and I'll talk to you later.